Hello, I'm Louis Beasley, and my informative speech is about African American women in the military. Does anyone have any knowledge of any famous African American women that served in our military?
No.
Okay, well, African American women have been a crucial part of our military since its inception. They washed uniforms, cooked food, and tended to wounds, sometimes even concealing their identities to serve on the battlefield. Some would cut their hair, and you could not tell if they were man or woman until they were wounded. Before I begin, I'd like to tell a couple of jokes just to make sure you guys are attentive. What do you call a soldier that has been pepper sprayed?
What?
A seasoned veteran. What did the sailor say to his shipmate when they had a problem?
What?
We're on the same boat.
I was gonna say we're all in this together.
All right. A young naval officer was in a terrible car accident, but due to the heroics of the hospital staff, and the only permanent injury was the loss of one ear. Since he wasn't physically impaired, he remained in the military and eventually became an admiral. However, during his career, he was always sensitive about his appearance. One day, the admiral was seeking some leadership to fill a joint staff position, so he interviewed an Army, Navy, and Marine E9. The first was a command sergeant major from the Army, and it was a great interview. At the end of the interview, the admiral asked, "Did you notice anything different about me?" The sergeant major answered, "Why, yes, I couldn't help but notice you're missing your right flank ear. So I don't know whether this impacts your hearing on that side or not, sir." The admiral got very angry and kicked him out of his office. The next candidate, an aviation master chief, was asked the same question. "Well, yes, sir, you seem to be short one ear on your starboard side, sir." The admiral threw him out of his office. The third interview was with a Marine gunny sergeant. He was articulate, extremely sharp, and seemed to know more than the other two combined. The admiral wanted this guy, but went ahead with the same question. "Do you notice anything different about me?" To his surprise, the gunny sergeant said, "Yes, you wear contact lenses." The admiral was impressed and thought to himself, "What an incredible, tactful Marine." "And how do you know that?" the admiral asked. The gunny replied, "Well, sir, it's pretty hard to wear glasses with one ear." All right, let's begin. Records date back as far as the American Revolution, when African American women were contributing to the military service areas like nursing, laundering, and cooking for soldiers. During the War of 1812, African American female assistance was limited to making band-aids and tending to the sick and wounded sailors. Additionally, black women were able to take care of the farm so the white men could leave their homes and families and go off to war knowing things would be smooth. During the Civil War, Harriet Tubman became an inspiration to all who love and value freedom. She served as a Union spy, an unpaid soldier, and a volunteer nurse. She loved freedom so much that she left her husband and brother behind when they chose not to run the risk of escaping for their freedom. During the war, she earned the nickname General Tubman from the soldiers on the battlefield. During the Spanish-American War, African-American females again played the role of nurses. During this war, over 75% of all deaths resulted from typhoid and yellow fever. Many black female volunteer nurses were told they were immune to the diseases because of their skin color. At the onset of World War I, for the first time in military history, African American females had an official organization where they found leadership and direction to use their abilities. African American females continued to serve by making bandages, taking over jobs that were held by soldiers who had to go out and fight on the battlefield. Some even served as hostess in houses where they wrote letters to illiterate soldiers returning from war. It was not until World War II, around 1942, when women were officially allowed to serve in great numbers in the armed forces. The Army had the Women Army Corps, which is known as WAC. The Navy had the Women Accepted for Voluntary Emergency Service, which was known as WAVES. African American women continued to serve from the Korean conflict through Vietnam and on through Desert Storm to present. African American women have served with distinction during Operation Desert Storm. Over 35,000 females who went to Desert Storm, there was an estimated 40% of them were African Americans. More recently, Admiral Michelle Howard, a 1978 graduate of the United States Naval Academy and a graduate of the Army's Command and General Staff College of 1998, served in Operation Desert Storm. She took command of the USS Rushmore in March of 1999, becoming the first African-American woman to command a ship in the United States Navy. One of her most famed accomplishments was while in command of the Expeditionary Strike Group 2 and Combined Task Force 151 aboard the Anfield assault ship USS Boxer, where she had the privilege of conducting counter-piracy operations in the Indian Ocean. This is where she would later play a key role in the rescue of Captain Richard Phillips, whose kidnapping by Somali pirates became a major motion picture film played by Tom Hanks. She retired from service December 1st, 2017. As the country has become more racially diverse, so has the United States military. Racial and ethnic minority groups made up 40% of Defense Department active duty military in 2015 is up from 25% in 1990. In the same year, African Americans made up 17% of the Department of Defense active duty military. It's clear that African American women have contributed in unprecedented ways to the military mission of defending this great nation since the American Revolution. I have a couple pictures. These 9 nurses all came from the Freedoms Hospital, now Harvard University Hospital in Washington, D.C. This is the picture of Admiral Howard taken in 2004 when she was a 1-star admiral. And again, she retired in December 2017 as a 4-star admiral, the Navy's highest ranking female at that time. Here is the graph that I talked about 17% African American around 2015. And here's some references that I found this information on. I hope this speech provided some value to you and was interesting in a way that you may go research some of the facts that I delivered.